All right, let's dive in. So imagine you have this cognitive superpower, something that really sets humans apart.
Okay,
You think it'd be perfect,
right?
flawless, always leading you to the right answer.
Makes sense.
Well, our deep dive today is all about that superpower, human reason, but, and this is where it gets really interesting, a lot of thinkers, philosophers, psychologists, they argue this power is actually systematically flawed.
Yeah, it's fascinating. For centuries, we kind of held on to this idea about reason. Its whole point was helping us as individuals get smarter and make better choices.
Right, the standard view.
Exactly. But then you look at the experiments, one after another, and they seem to show our reasoning, well, it often misses the mark, leads to biases, makes arguments even harder to solve.
So it makes you ask, if it's so flawed, why do we even have it? What's it for?
Precisely.
So today we're jumping into a really thought-provoking source you brought to the table, The Enigma of Reason by Hugo Mercier and Dan Sperber. And they really challenge that traditional view, suggesting we've basically got the whole purpose of reason wrong.
Fundamentally wrong, yeah.
We're going to explore why they think reason is actually well adapted to its real purpose and what that means for, how you think and interact every day.
Sounds good.
Okay, so for millennia, reason was seen as the thing that makes us human.
The defining trait.
Yeah, think Aristotle, basically inventing logic.
Yeah.
Or Kant, who thought logic was basically finished and complete after him.
A pretty bold claim.
Right. The idea was simple. Logic shows you what good reasoning is. Bad reasoning, that's just, a failed attempt at being logical.
It paints a neat picture, but then, fast forward to the 20th century, psychologists start actually testing how people reason, experimentally.
And the results.
Often pretty puzzling. They'd set up these problems, logic problems, that should be fairly simple, right? But people consistently made what the authors call egregious mistakes. They showed systematic biases. It really kicked off these huge debates, the so-called rationality wars.
Which is weird because you'd expect our brains to nail basic logic, wouldn't you? Let's look at some classic examples from the book they talk about.
Okay.
There was one about the tennis player Bjorn Borg. This was back in 1980, an experiment about the Wimbledon finals.
Right, I remember this one.
They asked students to rank the likelihood of different outcomes, and here's the kicker.
Yeah.
72% of the students said it was more likely that Borg will lose the first set but win the match than just Borg will lose the first set.
Which feels intuitive, maybe, but it's logically impossible.
Exactly. When I first read that, I had to stop and think, wait a second. Losing the first set and Andy winning the match, that's a subset of just losing the first set. It has to be less probable or equal at best.
It's a fantastic example of how our gut feelings can just override basic probability rules. A real classic trap.
Definitely. And there's another one I discussed, the Denton farmers problem, sometimes called the pigeonhole problem.
Ah, yes, cows.
Right, the cows. So you have 22 farmers in Denton. Every farmer has at least one cow, but nobody has more than 17 cows.
Okay.
Question is, how likely is it that at least 2 farmers have the exact same number of cows?
And if you think about it logically, with 22 farmers, pigeons, and only 17 possible numbers of cows, pigeonholes 1 to 17.
It has to happen. It's certain. Not just probable. It's a guarantee. Someone must share a number.
But only 30% of the participants got that right. Most thought it was just probable or even unlikely.
It's kind of humbling, isn't it? How easily we miss these logical certainties.
Absolutely. And these experiments, plus loads more like them, they really make it look like our wheels of reason are off balance, as Mercier and Sperber put it.
Which leads to that big question for the researchers.
Yeah, are humans just fundamentally irrational?
Yeah.
Or maybe the experiments themselves are kind of misleading. Maybe they don't capture how we reason in the real world.
And Mercier and Sperber lean towards the second option.
Strongly. They argue that psychologists often create these really artificial setups. They expect people to ignore everything they know about the world and just focus on the weird premises given in the test.
Which is hard to do. Almost impossible sometimes.
Right. Our minds aren't really built for that kind of abstract, context-free logic puzzle.
Okay, so if reason isn't this perfect individual tool for finding truth, what is it? What's this new scientific understanding they're proposing?
Well, they suggest reason isn't some weird extra bit bolted onto our cognition. It's an adaptation.
An adaptation for what?
for living in what they call a hypersocial niche, that super interconnected, language-heavy social world that humans created, intense relationships, complex communication.
So reason evolved for social life.
That's the core idea. And what's really revolutionary is how they reframe reason's so-called flaws. They argue these flaws are actually features.
Features. How so?
Well, they describe reason, when used alone, by yourself, as being both biased and lazy.
Biased and lazy. That sounds bad. Doesn't it fly in the face of what we think good reasoning is?
It does from the traditional view, but think about it this way. This bias they talk about is the my side bias.
Okay.
Reason is overwhelmingly good at finding justifications and arguments that support your existing point of view, whatever you already believe or want to do.
Ah, so it finds reasons for my side. My side bias. Makes sense.
Exactly. And it's lazy because it doesn't really bother checking if those justifications are actually any good. It just grabs them.
Could you give an example?
Sure. Someone loves beach holidays. Their reasoning will instantly generate tons of reasons why the beach is the best choice. Sunshine, relaxation, sea air. Even if those reasons are pretty weak or could apply to a mountain trip too, it doesn't critically evaluate them.
Okay, I can see that.
And it's not just everyday stuff. They point to Linus Pauling, the Nobel laureate. Brilliant guy.
Uh-huh. 2 Nobels, right?
Yeah. But he became convinced vitamin C could cure cancer. And despite really strong evidence against it from places like the Mayo Clinic, he just kept building his case.
How?
He'd find flimsy excuses to dismiss the negative studies. He was, as they put it, boundlessly fertile in generating reasons for his belief, but showed almost no self-criticism. He even made up rules for what counted as a valid study, rules that only his preferred study met.
Wow. That really shows how powerful that bias can be, even in someone, objectively brilliant.
It does, and it leads to this really surprising insight they develop,
Which is?
that reasons are often constructed after the fact. We don't reason our way to a conclusion most of the time. We arrive at the conclusion intuitively, and then reason kicks in to justify it.
So justification comes later. Like a PR department for our gut feelings.
That's a great way to put it. Think about that case they mentioned, Theodore Wafer, the man in Michigan who shot someone on his porch.
Crime self-defense, right?
Yes. The authors suggest the reasons he gave in court, why he felt threatened, why he shot, those were likely the best justifications he could come up with after it happened, not necessarily what was actually going through his mind in that split second.
A retrospective explanation.
Exactly. Or think about the bystander effect experiments.
Okay.
Classic social psychology.
Where people are less likely to help if others are around.
Right. In one study, if there was another person present who was actually part of the experiment, a Confederate, who just ignored someone clearly in distress.
The real participant was less likely to help too.
Much less likely. But here's the key part. When asked later why they didn't help, most denied the other person's inaction influenced them at all.
So what did they say?
They came up with other reasons. Plausible justifications, the authors call them. I thought someone else had called for help, or I wasn't sure if it was serious. Reasons created after the fact to explain their inaction.
So just to make sure I'm getting this, the reasons we tell ourselves or tell other people, they might be totally different from the actual, maybe unconscious things that drove our actions.
That's a core part of their argument. They distinguish between psychological reasons, the ones we talk about, and objective reasons, the actual causal factors. We often look at our intuitive conclusions and then infer what our reasons must have been.
That really flips the script. Reason isn't the guide, it's the storyteller.
In many cases, yes, it justifies our intuitions rather than directs them.
Okay, that's a massive shift. So if reason is busy justifying, what's actually generating these intuitions in the first place?
Yeah.
Where do those gut feelings come from?
Well, our thinking seems to rely on a whole bunch of specialized tools, inferential modules, they call them.
Like tools in a toolbox.
Kind of. They give the example of desert ants. They have this amazing built-in navigation system. Tracks, direction, distance, purely automatic.
Okay.
Or think about visual illusions, like Roger Shepard's Monsters in a Tunnel. You see 2 identical monster figures, but one looks way bigger than the other.
Yeah, because of the tunnel lines creating depth cues.
Your perception automatically infers distance and size based on those cues. You don't consciously reason it out, you just see one as bigger. That's an intuition generated by a perceptual module.
So we have these modules giving us intuitions, judgments, decisions, without us really knowing the why behind them consciously.
That seems to be the case for a lot of our cognition.
So where does reason, the conscious bit, fit into this picture of modules?
Their proposal is that there's a specific reason module, and its unique job is to generate intuitions about reasons.
Intuitions about reasons. How does that work?
Its actual domain is pretty narrow. It just deals with reasons as, like, mental concepts. But because reasons can be about absolutely anything.
Like caravans or the Earth's circumference?
Exactly. Like Eratosthenes figuring out the size of the Earth using shadows and angles. The reasons involved, things like the sun's position, distance. So the virtual domain of reason becomes huge. It can apply to anything.
Okay, so it's specialized in handling reasons, but reasons can apply generally. That makes it both specific and broad.
Precisely. It's a clever way to think about it.
And language is key here, you said.
Absolutely central. Reasons in this interactionist view are fundamentally for social consumption. They need to be articulated, usually verbally.
Even when you're thinking to yourself.
Often, yes. Think about reasoning silently. Isn't it often like having a conversation in your head? You're kind of anticipating arguments, preparing justifications.
Yeah, that's true, actually, like practicing an argument.
Right. And language gives us the tools, words like because, so, if then but, to build these complex relationships between reasons and conclusions and share them with others.
Okay, this leads us somewhere really important then. If reason is social, if it's about justifying and arguing, then its real power isn't when we're thinking alone.
It shines in argumentation, in interaction.
And this is where the research gets really cool, showing this weird asymmetry.
Yes. People are surprisingly good, very critical when evaluating other people's reasons.
What?
But remarkably lax, lazy even, when evaluating their own reasons. We produce biased reasons easily, but we scrutinize others' arguments quite effectively.
That asymmetry is fascinating. So how does that play out when people actually argue together?
It makes group argumentation incredibly efficient, much more than solitary reasoning. Take the Wasson selection task, again, that logic puzzle people usually bomb on their own. When you put people in small groups and let them discuss it, argue about it, a massive 80% of the groups figure out the correct answer.
80%. That's a huge jump. It's like, as they say, sprinters running a 100-meter race in 5 seconds just by running together.
It really highlights the power of distributed reasoning. Or consider the Delphi method studies with geopolitical forecasting.
Where experts predict future events.
Right. Individually, the experts weren't great. Their predictions were often poor. But when they put groups of experts together online, let them argue, exchange reasons, critique each other's points.
Their predictions got better.
Significantly better. They outperformed individual experts, even beat basic statistical models. The collaborative argumentation improved accuracy.
And you see this in real-world situations too, like juries.
Definitely. They mention mock jury studies. You have a complex stabbing case. Individually, jurors might latch onto one piece of evidence, favor an incorrect verdict initially.
Yeah, my side bias again.
Exactly. But when they deliberate as a group, comparing interpretations, challenging each other's reasoning, pointing out overlooked evidence, many juries manage to converge on the legally correct verdict, like second-degree murder in the example. The group discussion helped counterbalance individual biases.
It really seems like this argumentation thing isn't just some modern invention. It's deeply human, across cultures and history.
Absolutely universal. You see it everywhere. Think of the Socratic method in ancient Greece, all about dialogue and challenging assumptions.
Or that 7th century Japanese constitution Prince Umayado mentioned, encouraging discussion for important decisions.
Right. Or even in hunter-gatherer societies like the Yanomamo. The headman K% Bawe didn't rule by force. He relied on his skill in argumentation to persuade and influence people. It's a fundamental social tool.
And the example of the abolition of slavery in Britain, there wasn't just people saying slavery is wrong.
Not at all. It was driven by relentless, sophisticated argumentation. Abolitionists like William Wilberforce, they didn't just have moral conviction. They mastered the economic arguments, the legal arguments. They anticipated the pro-slavery points and systematically refuted them.
They built an evidence-based case.
A powerful one. They generated massive public support through pamphlets, debates, testimonies, eventually forcing a complete reversal of established economic and social logic through sheer argumentative power.
So how does arguing actually make individuals better reasoners? Does it stick?
Evidence suggests it does. Studies show that when people are regularly confronted with counter-arguments, they learn to anticipate them. They start thinking about the other side more.
So it trains you to be less biased.
It seems so. Students trained specifically in argumentation skills didn't just argue better in groups, they wrote better essays alone. Their arguments were more complex. They considered counter-arguments more often, compared to students who just took standard philosophy classes.
So learning to argue well together actually helps you reason better by yourself later on.
That's the key takeaway. The social practice improves the individual skill.
Okay, so argumentation is powerful. But the book also warns about reason's dark side, right? Especially when we reason alone without that back and forth.
Yes, absolutely. When reason isn't constrained by external challenges, by genuine debate, it can lead to serious self-deception and even extremism.
Even for brilliant people.
Especially for brilliant people sometimes, their ability to generate reasons can be turned towards defending flawed ideas. Take the Dreyfus affair in France.
The spy case.
Yes. And Alphonse Bertillon, a top forensic scientist at the time, hugely influential, he became utterly convinced Dreyfus was guilty, despite evidence pointing the other way.
And he used his brilliance to rationalize.
Massively. He came up with increasingly bizarre theories to explain away contradictory evidence. The most famous was his theory of autoforgery. The idea that Dreyfus had deliberately faked his own handwriting to make it look different, to throw investigators off.
That sounds desperate.
It's a prime example of belief perseverance. You cling to your initial belief and just build this unyielding scaffold of reasons, no matter how absurd, to prop it up against all contradictory facts.
And this can happen in groups, too, if they're all reinforcing each other's biases.
Definitely. When people gang up to find reasons supporting their beliefs, as the authors put it, without any real dissent or challenge, that's where you get dangerous groupthink.
Doubts get silenced, maybe.
Or worse, they escalate. Minor suspicions can morph into full-blown paranoia and drift into outlandish territories. They mention how some early questions about 9/11, when discussed only within echo chambers online, spiraled into elaborate government conspiracy theories.
Because the reason-generating engine keeps running, but only in one direction, without checks.
Social function gets warped without genuine argument aimed at truth.
There was another surprising point. You mentioned how reason sometimes leads us not to the best choice, but the one that's easiest to justify.
Yes. Reason-based choice. It's fascinating. When our intuitions are weak or conflicted, we often default to the option that we can easily find reasons for, even if it's not actually the best option for us.
Like the poster experiment.
Right. Participants chose a poster to take home. Some just picked intuitively. Others had to write down reasons for their choice first.
And the ones who wrote reasons.
Weeks later, they were less satisfied with their posters than the intuition group. Overthinking it, focusing on easily articulable reasons, led them to pick posters that maybe looked good on paper, but didn't resonate with them emotionally in the long run. More reasoning actually led to a worse subjective outcome.
Wow. And that Hawaii vacation experiment is wild, too.
Oh yeah, that's a powerful one. People are offered a great deal on a Hawaii trip, but it expires before they get their crucial exam results back. Now, the people who already knew they'd passed or failed, most of them bought the package. Easy justification, right? It's a reward. Or, I need a break after that failure.
Makes sense. But what about those who didn't know their results yet?
They were stuck. The reasons reward versus consolation weren't available yet. So what did many of them do? They paid an extra $5 just to wait for the results before deciding.
They paid. For a reason.
Effectively, yes. They bought the justification. They likely would have gone anyway, regardless of passing or failing, but they needed that clear reason locked in before committing.
That really highlights how much we value justification. Even more than $5.
It seems so, and it connects to things like the sunk cost fallacy, too.
Ah, right. Like braving a blizzard for a concert ticket you paid $100 for, but maybe not if it was free?
Exactly. Even though the $100 has gone either way, it's irrational from a purely future outcome perspective.
But the reason I don't want to waste the money I spent is a powerful justification for going, isn't it? Even if staying warm and safe is objectively better.
It's an easier reason to grab onto than admitting you made a bad initial investment or that circumstances changed.
So why would reason work like this? Why prioritize justification, even over practical benefits sometimes?
The authors suggest it often comes down to social reputation. Looking rational, being able to justify your actions to others, might have a higher social payoff than making the objectively optimal choice that you can't easily explain.
So we want to avoid looking foolish or incompetent to others.
That could be a big part of it. Choosing the justifiable option, even if slightly worse, protects our social standing.
And the book tackles moral reasoning directly as well, which is obviously a huge area.
A really crucial one. And they use Thomas Jefferson as a striking example.
Brilliant thinker. wrote about universal rights.
And owned slaves. And, as the authors point out, his writings contain these elaborate justifications for it, what they describe as racist pseudoscience.
Finding reasons to uphold the status quo, basically.
Reasons that argued black and white people couldn't coexist due to inherent physical and moral differences. It's a stark example of reason being used to generate convenient rationalizations for deeply ingrained beliefs, desires, or economic interests.
And this isn't just historical. You mentioned moral dumbfounding.
Yes, that's from modern experiments. People make a strong moral judgment, say, about a taboo act like harmless, consensual incest between adult siblings. They feel it's wrong.
Yeah.
But then, when the experimenter refutes every single reason they give for why it's wrong, it could cause genetic defects, it will harm them emotionally. The scenario stipulates none of these apply.
They still say it's wrong.
Often, yes. They run out of reasons. They might even say, I don't know why, it's just wrong. It suggests the intuitive moral judgment came first, and the reasons were just attempts to justify it afterward.
So does this mean moral arguments are pointless? That we're all just stuck rationalizing our gut feelings?
No, not at all. That's the crucial balancing point.
Mm.
While solitary reason might default to rationalization,
Argumentation can change things.
yes, argumentation can change moral opinions, especially if the goal is genuinely trying to get things right, not just win or defend a position. The abolition movement is proof again.
Through rigorous debate and evidence.
Exactly. It shows that even deeply entrenched moral prejudices can be overcome when people are forced, through argument, to confront better reasons, more consistent principles, and inconvenient facts. It's not easy, but it's possible.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this all really mean for you listening? Our deep dive into the Enigma of Reason really flips the script.
It really does.
Reason isn't primarily this solo superpower for finding perfect truth inside your own head.
Yeah.
It seems to be this incredibly powerful social tool.
Yeah, adapted to help us justify ourselves, persuade others, evaluate their arguments, and just navigate this complex social world we live in.
And the things we usually call flaws, the bias, the laziness.
They actually look like features, design features that make reason work efficiently in social interactions. Quick justification for yourself, critical evaluation of others.
So while you might be quick to rationalize when you're just thinking on your own,
You're also probably pretty good, better than you think, at spotting the weaknesses in other people's arguments.
and that leads us to the final thought, maybe something provocative to chew on.
Hmm.
How does knowing this change how you approach disagreements, or even just how you think through big decisions?
Does it make you maybe want to seek out more debate? Not necessarily conflict, but genuine exchange of reasons.
Yeah, or listen more critically when people justify their actions, maybe including yourself, and perhaps be a little less automatically trusting of your own first easy reasons.
It really suggests the true power of reason isn't locked away inside us.
But it sparks to life in that back and forth,
Yeah.
in the interaction between minds.
That seems to be the enigma and maybe the solution.